We turn to Massachusetts, that primary where Trump-backed gubernatorial candidate Geoff Diehl won the Republican nomination.
He did, and his win prompted harsh words from his opponent, who he'll face in the general election. That is current Democratic Attorney General Maura Healey, telling CBS, quote, "We know that he'll put politics over progress. We know that he'll be out of touch with the values we stand for. We know that he'll oppose abortion rights. They will bring Trumpism to Massachusetts. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of the anger, the vitriol, the division."
And Geoff Diehl joins us live now. Good morning to you, and thanks so much for joining us. How are you feeling? Your reaction this morning, and again, your reaction to who would be your opponent in November?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. It was an exciting win yesterday, convincing win, obviously, in a primary. But we also were able to reach out to a lot of independent voters. Even Democrats, I think, are going to be coming to us because they understand that Maura Healey is the one that is the most dangerous for our state. We haven't had an attorney general who's a Democrat become governor in our state for a reason. They let their ideology drive everything. And Maura Healey, during the 2020 riots around the country, when there was arson and looting and murder of people trying to protect their businesses, she went to a Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce meeting and said, yes, America's burning, but that's how forests grow. As our top law enforcement official in Massachusetts, she condoned the violence and said that's how democracy works in our state, in our country. She is wrong for Massachusetts, and she's wrong about a lot of things. And I'll be definitely making my case for the next 2 months about that.
Yeah. Campaign season definitely in full swing. I know you've got the former president, Donald Trump's endorsement. He supported you during the primary, assuming he will continue to do so as we lead up to November. But tell me about the state overall. We know that there's about 10% of registered Republicans in the state of Massachusetts. So the odds might not look so great when you're looking at it big picture. But right now, the state does have a Republican governor, Charlie Baker. Of course, he's not seeking re-election. But tell me about your plan to keep the seat red.
Yeah, so Massachusetts has had a Republican governor for 24 of the last 32 years. It's a very liberal legislature, a supermajority of Democrats in the House and Senate. I should know because I actually served in the House for 8 years. I was able to block bad legislation that came out, and I was able to work with grassroots teams to repeal bad legislation that would have tied our gas tax to inflation. So I know what it happens on Beacon Hill, and as governor, I know that we can be that one check to that very liberal legislature. And I think the people of Massachusetts know that. In fact, they voted for Scott Brown in 2010 when he said he would be the 41st vote against Obamacare. People know that they didn't want government to take over their health care. And right now, after the pandemic, people are very nervous about big government.
Yeah, my question for you, Geoff, now is what do you think is the big issue there in the state of Massachusetts? I'll give you an example. Obviously, in Virginia, it was schooling, right, and parents getting involved in their child's what's being taught in the classroom. What is it for Massachusetts voters that will resonate? Really, not just on the Republican side, but a way to reach the entire state from your campaign.
So during the pandemic, we were one of the blue states that stayed shut down for a long time. People were very upset that their kids didn't go back to schools. And when kids were online at home, parents started to see that questionable curriculum, sexual preference material at ages like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. Parents were very upset with that. And they want more of a voice in their kids' curriculum. They were shut down at school board meetings and they are angry. So those folks right now, I'm going to give them those school choices. We've seen double-digit increase in private school enrollment. We've seen a doubling of homeschooling in Massachusetts. So I'm going to give them that school choice where the tax dollars follow the kids. And then we create that free market competition in the education marketplace. On top of that, the vaccine mandates that caused a lot of people to be fired in our state. Nurses, my running mate's a nurse who was fired. She was nursing a baby. She was on the pandemic floor, the COVID floor, did not want to take the vaccine because of the effect of the baby. She was fired. So many people lost their jobs in our state right now that we're going to restore every single state job of somebody who was fired because of that vaccine mandate and give them back their medical health care choices.
The impact of COVID still very strong in the daily lives of folks, especially those who would have lost their jobs during the pandemic. When you make this appeal to voters, of course, that might resonate across political aisles. But because you do carry that Trump endorsement, and I'm looking back at the 2020 election, going back in time there, Joe Biden won Massachusetts with about a 30-point margin there. So clearly, your state favoring the current president here. Do you plan to distance yourself from Donald Trump at all during this election cycle?
Oh, no, I think people know exactly what I stand for. I supported a president that gave us 4 of the best years that I think I've seen in my lifetime. I used to be a former Democrat. I've considered myself a Reagan Republican. And I think a lot of people in Massachusetts are former Democrats or are Democrats that understand you need a Republican in there. And Joe Biden, even though he had a significant win in 20, he has gone down the tubes in Massachusetts. He was underwater with his approval rating here in our state. The Attorney General is underwater in her approval rating. People understand now the Democrat Party is much more radical than it ever was in its lifetime. And the policies, the divisiveness, the President Biden giving that speech, calling anybody who voted against him a terrorist, that is very upsetting to a lot of people. And I think that's going to carry a lot more weight in this cycle than obviously in 2020.
Yeah, using that term extremist amongst others there. Geoff Diehl, we appreciate that. Congratulations on your win. Thanks for coming on National Report. Thank you.
Thanks for the time.
Hey guys, it's Rob Carson. September is historically the worst performing month for the stock market, so you better be ready for it. The Fed continues to aggressively raise rates, and JP Morgan is forecasting another mega rate hike September the 21st. Is that why Jamie Dimon said an economic hurricane is coming our way? Well, gold and silver have remained remarkably stable despite the Fed aggressively raising rates today. The Patriot Gold Group has a special incentive for Newsmax viewers. Huge! Now precious metals investors can enjoy the no fee for life gold and silver IRA on qualifying rollovers, or enjoy free discrete insured shipping on all direct gold and silver purchases. Here's the number: 800-356-4470. Call 800-356-4470 today.